the Partha Chatterjee, Arpita Mukherjee matter and the recruitment scam, where a 14-day judicial custody has been granted to the Enforcement Directorate to further examine Partha Chatterjee as well as Arpita Mukherjee for their alleged role in the teachers' recruitment scam. Now, a lot of submissions made by the Enforcement Directorate during the hearings in a PMLA court seeking further extension of their custody, and that's now been granted by the court there, which was finding enough reason in the claims and submissions made by the Enforcement Directorate to give them further custody of the two accused in this particular matter, to further examine the claims against them and substantiate the charges that have been leveled about their role in this particular matter. The submissions from the Enforcement Directorate to the PMLA court also, of course, included the claim that Arpita Mukherjee might be a flight risk. She might also seek to influence witnesses. In fact, let me go across to Tanushree for more on this. Tanushree, if you could just take us through the reasons as to why the PMLA court has now agreed to further extend custody of Arpita Mukherjee and Partha Chatterjee.
Well, if you see the PMLA court, there were certain very important points that were brought out. One main point that was brought out is that apart from the OPA utility services, there is another company that has been brought out in the investigation, and that is the Ananda Tech Private Limited. Now, this becomes very important in the point of investigation. The investigators also say that more than 50 bank accounts have been found. So, therefore, investigation needs to be continued. But even though the PMLA Act allows ED custody till 14 days, so they have got to 14 days, but now since they say that they are flight risk, they can influence other witnesses, therefore they should be kept in judicial custody. And we know that the judicial custody has been granted till the 19th of this month for both Partha and Arpita Mukherjee. And
Tanushree, if you could also explain to us the reasons that the court has given in its rationale and acceptance of the submissions made by the Enforcement Directorate to grant further custody to the ED.
Well, yes, there were certain very important points. Like in Partha Chatterjee's case, the remand copy categorically says that he is from the ruling party, and even though he has been removed from his seat, even though he is not the party, but he is MLA. So there is a cloud, there is a considerable cloud with it, and there is a likelihood that he can go with the This is one of the points mentioned in the remand copy. Also, being said that he is a very influential person, through his contacts. Another thing is that Partha Chatterjee from day one, Enforcement Directorate has categorically said that he is uncooperative. Even when they were put face to face, at that point of time, Partha Chatterjee, when asked if he knows Arpita Mukherjee, categorically said that he does not know her that well. He has seen her once or twice during the...
Right. Tanushree, let me just interrupt you there. We're also being joined right now by Tamal Saha for more on this. Tamal, if you could just take us through what happened in the PMLA court and the reasons why further custody has been granted to the ED.
Well, the custody is not given to ED, but it's a judicial custody for 15 days of Directorate custody, or rather 14 days of Enforcement Directorate custody is over, and Enforcement Directorate did not ask for any further custody because technically they can't. So Enforcement Directorate had paid for judicial custody for both Partha Chatterjee and Arpita Mukherjee. Now, as far as Partha Chatterjee is concerned, he had put a special bail petition, and in that bail prayer, he had suggested that age is not keep well. He's 70 years old, and that he is not involved with the money. The money has not been recovered from his house, and that no document has been recovered from his house, and thus he should be considered bail. And given the fact that the money has been recovered, there is no proof that Partha Chatterjee has received this money as proceeds of crime from an individual, because there is no specific complaint pertaining to the same. Now, that was the argument of Partha Chatterjee, to which Enforcement Directorate had clearly suggested that Partha Chatterjee is an influential person. He has been in thick of an alleged nexus and the crime, which also led to proceeds of crime from several scams, so that his bail petition should be rejected. Now the court has decided that both Arpita Mukherjee and Partha Chatterjee would be sent to judicial custody for 14 days. So they will be produced before court once again on 18th of August. Till 18th of August is judicial custody, which means Arpita Mukherjee and Partha Chatterjee from the PMLA court today will straight be going to the jail. That's one. Second of all, the Enforcement Directorate had also prayed that they should be allowed to interrogate both the duo in the jail. That prayer has also been granted. Enforcement Directorate will be allowed to interrogate both Partha Chatterjee and Arpita Mukherjee as and when they want in the in jail during the course of judicial custody. The third prayer of the Enforcement Directorate had been that there is a threat perception for Arpita Mukherjee, and that her food and her water, when being provided to her, should be tested before being provided to her for consumption. That was the prayer because ED has verbally suggested before the court, as per the instruction from the ED officers, that there is specific intel of a threat to Arpita Mukherjee's life, to which the order is still being read out. At this point in time, what you can confirm, both Partha Chatterjee and Arpita Mukherjee going to jail. Partha Chatterjee's bail application has been rejected. ED can question them as and when they want in the jail and interrogate them.
Tamal, in fact, stay with us because that's an important point that you've made. Firstly, that this is judicial custody. It's not further ED custody, though the ED will have the freedom to examine both Partha as well as Arpita. But the specific point that you mentioned about alleged threat to Arpita Mukherjee, this was not put down in writing by the Enforcement Directorate. It was something that was conveyed orally to the court.
Well, that was a very, very important submission that was made by the ED Council, and mind you, it was not part of the remand, it was not part of any document. While the Enforcement Directorate was strongly, vociferously countering the bail petition of Partha Chatterjee, suggesting that he is an influential person, the Enforcement Directorate Council, at the instruction of ED officers, had quote-unquote mentioned there is grave threat perception for Arpita Mukherjee. There is serious threat intel for Arpita Mukherjee. Thus, the food and the water which has been provided to Arpita Mukherjee in jail should be tested before being given to her for her consumption. That's one. And that she should not be kept in a jail with more than 3 inmates or 4 inmates. So basically, the security perspective, the security threat of Arpita Mukherjee was put forth by Enforcement Directorate. And very interestingly, Arpita Mukherjee's counsel in the court had also prayed for Division 1 prisoner status, suggesting that she has a social status, and according to that social status, she should be granted Division 1 prisoner status, which means there would be isolation, which means there would be certain more benefits, extra benefits compared to other inmates who are there in the jail. And thereafter you also saw Enforcement Directorate Council clearly suggesting that there is serious threat perception for Arpita Mukherjee, not disclosing much as what is the intelligence if they have come across any such instance where Arpita Mukherjee had come under any kind of attack or any kind of other untoward incident. Without specifying any of that, Enforcement Directorate had only made a very limited submission that there is a grave threat perception for Arpita Mukherjee. There is serious threat intelligence for Arpita Mukherjee, that she should not be, her security should not be taken very lightly, and that food and water, I repeat, food and water when being provided to her inside the jail should be tested before given to her for her consumption.
Right, Tamal, and it will be very interesting to see what the court specifically has to say about this particular submission conveyed orally to them by the Enforcement Directorate. But this obviously means that this particular case is taking a slightly sinister turn here, because it will obviously raise questions as to who would want to, in fact, threaten Arpita or eliminate her or seek to eliminate her as a result of what's actually happening vis-a-vis the investigations.
Well, it is very significant, Siddhant, because we have to understand it was Arpita Mukherjee's residence from where at 2 occasions huge vats of cash had been recovered. It was Arpita Mukherjee's residence from where several incriminating documents, mobile phones were recovered. And it was the money which was recovered from the house of Arpita Mukherjee on 22nd of June, 22nd of July, beg your pardon, had also in a way brought to fore that there is an alleged scam from where proceeds of crime had come. And in this alleged scam, Partha Chatterjee had been allegedly instrumental. So Arpita Mukherjee's house, when being raided, after ED had raided Partha Chatterjee's house on 22nd of July, led to the recovery of huge sum of cash and other incriminating documents. not to discount the fact that in the past 14 days, during the course of raids and interrogation and investigation, Enforcement Directorate had stumbled upon several property deeds. And these properties indicate that there are several properties on the name of Arpita Mukherjee. At the same time, there are multiple properties jointly owned by both Partha Chatterjee and Arpita Mukherjee, bringing to fore there is a very close relationship between the two. Now, whether this relationship had fostered over time, with the foundation having a crime or a mind for a crime, it's something the Enforcement Directorate is clearly investigating. ED has very strongly said that as far as accounts are concerned, the transactions are concerned, they indicate that there had been a sinister design in place, and at the same time, the scam and the words that you see at the moment could simply be the tip of the iceberg. So in that context, when you juxtapose today's submission of ED before the court, that there is a serious threat perception, does it mean that Arpita Mukherjee has disclosed a lot about the alleged scam, putting Partha Chatterjee further on the dock? It's something that Enforcement Directorate possibly would be clarifying with days to come. Right. But given the fact that Partha Chatterjee has been identified as one non-cooperative, given the fact that Partha Chatterjee has been identified as somebody powerful and influential, given the fact that ED had opposed to his bail application, only indicate that the approach of ED towards Partha Chatterjee is much more strict, and they must be having a solid reason for that. So at this point in time, whether Partha Chatterjee is the real culprit and use Arpita Mukherjee as a frontal, continue with the nefarious acts of alleged crime, we have to wait for final confirmation. But given the fact that Arpita Mukherjee has been identified by ED inside the court before the judge as the one who is comparatively more cooperative than Partha Chatterjee, possibly it means that as far as these scams are concerned, Arpita Mukherjee has possibly given out certain deeds and details that has taken the investigation forward, and that's the reason, for the sake of investigation, ED wants absolute security of Arpita Mukherjee so that she stays fine to take the investigation forward. Does it mean trouble for Partha Chatterjee? Only time would say.
And there was another submission made by the counsel for Partha Chatterjee in court, was it not, when he specifically tried to rebut the claim that Arpita Mukherjee had listed Partha Chatterjee as her nominee in at least one of the LIC policies that was in fact in her name. It appears due to the grant of further custody or judicial custody in this particular case with regards to both Arpita as well as Partha, that the court has not bought that argument.
Well, that's right. In fact, we are just getting this information, Siddhant, and they both would be sent to Presidency jail. I repeat, both Partha Chatterjee and, I beg your pardon, Partha Chatterjee would be sent to Presidency jail. Arpita Mukherjee would be sent to Alipore jail. Now, Partha Chatterjee would be kept along with other inmates. That's no special treatment to him. There cannot be any special treatment to him. So, so he will not be given any additional, additional benefit. That part has been now being specified by the judge. We are still waiting for a confirmation as whether the status of a Division 1 prisoner will be given to Arpita Mukherjee or not.